What feels like patience on your part looks like weakness on theirs. You believe you're demonstrating commitment, but they read it as desperation. You believe you're showing love, but they see it as permission. And little by little, your presence stops feeling like a privilege to them. It starts feeling like an entitlement. Almost, love feels safe because it gives you just enough to keep believing. It's the good morning text once in a while, the date that feels magical every few weeks, the soft promises that never quite turn into action. It's not nothing. It's something. And that something is exactly what makes it dangerous. Because it tricks you into staying, feeding you crumbs that feel like a meal when you're starving for connection. Almost, love keeps you in limbo. You're not single, but you're not fully chosen. You're not unloved, but you're not deeply loved either. You're in this twilight zone where the highs are intoxicating, but the lows are quietly eroding your self-worth. And because you've tasted just enough sweetness, you convince yourself that more is coming. If only you can be patient, if only you can hold out a little longer. The problem is, a little longer becomes months, sometimes years. You stay locked into a cycle of hope and disappointment, waiting for them to finally decide you're worth more than almost. And while you wait, your standards bend, your confidence slips, and your vision of what real love feels like starts to blur. You begin to normalize inconsistency, to treat mixed signals like signs of progress, to mistake effortlessness for intimacy. Almost, love steals your energy for something real. The time you spend clinging to it is time you could have invested in building a connection with someone who's ready now. Not almost ready, not halfway there, not cone day. It's like sitting in a waiting room for an appointment that was never scheduled. You keep checking the clock, believing the door will open, while life is passing by outside. The comfort of almost love is that it doesn't hurt enough to force you to leave, but it doesn't nourish enough to allow you to thrive. It lulls you into a false sense of security, where you're constantly pacified by moments that feel special, but never solid. And because it's not a clear rejection, you accept the gray area as if it's better than nothing, not realizing it's draining you more than being alone ever could. The fastest way to flip the power dynamic isn't by convincing someone of your worth. It's by showing them you no longer need their validation. Power shifts the second you stop waiting for their calls, stop rearranging your plans, and stop making them the center of your emotional weather. When you reclaim your time, your energy, your focus, they feel the change immediately. Suddenly, the person who always said, "Voice isn't available on command," and that absence forces them to pay attention. The reason you've been the backup is because you've been too predictable. You're always there, always ready, always giving. Predictability breeds complacency. The moment you become less available, less responsive, less eager to please, you interrupt their pattern. You show them, without saying a word, that you're no longer orbiting around them. That disruption creates curiosity, and curiosity is what pulls people back in. Flipping the dynamic doesn't mean playing games, it means setting boundaries that actually stick. When they cancel plans last minute, you don't reschedule immediately. When they take days to respond, you don't reward them with instant attention. When they give half effort, you don't match it with full effort. You're not punishing them, you're teaching them. You're showing that access to you is conditional, based on respect, consistency, and reciprocity. And here's the thing, the moment you raise your standard, people only have two options: rise up or fall away. If they value you, they'll step up because they don't want to lose what they can no longer take for granted. If they don't, they'll drift, and that's your clarity right there. Either way, you win. Because you're no longer waiting, wishing, or chasing. You're choosing. The overnight flip happens because power isn't about control over them. It's about control over yourself. The second you detach your worth from their attention, the game changes. You stop asking, "Do they want me?" and start asking, "Do I even want this?" That single shift from seeking to selecting is the pivot that turns the backup into the prize. The line between being someone's option and being someone's priority is drawn by the standards you set. People don't magically wake up one day and treat you differently. They respond to the level of treatment you allow. If you accept the bare minimum, that's exactly what you'll get. If you set the bar higher and enforce it, you force people to either rise to it or reveal that they never intended to. A priority is someone who doesn't have to beg for effort. They don't wonder if they'll hear back. They don't sit in uncertainty about where they stand. A priority is shown consistently that they matter. An option, on the other hand, lives on uncertainty, left guessing, waiting, hoping for scraps of attention. And the painful truth is that many people remain an option not because the other person is cruel, but because they never demanded the clarity or respect they deserved. Your standard is not about words, it's about consequences. If someone disrespects your time, does your schedule stay open for them anyway? If someone goes silent for days, do you welcome them back with excitement the second they reappear? If someone gives you half effort, do you double down with more energy to compensate? Every time you do, you're setting the standard that this is all it takes to keep you. Raising the standard means deciding that you'd rather be alone than strung along. It means valuing your peace more than their inconsistency. It means you stop negotiating with yourself, telling stories about their potential, and start demanding evidence of real, present effort. Because people don't respect potential, they respect boundaries. And boundaries are only as strong as your willingness to enforce them. The shift happens when you stop measuring someone by how much you like them and start measuring them by how much they invest in you. Attraction can blind you into lowering the bar, but standard forces you to ask harder questions. Are they consistent? Are they clear? Do they follow through? Do they treat me like I matter when it's inconvenient, not just when it's easy? The answers to those questions reveal instantly whether you're being treated as an option or a priority. And the reality is this: you don't get treated like a priority by accident. It happens because you set a standard that refuses to reward anything less. People rise to the level of the access you grant them. And if they don't rise, it's not a loss. It's a filter. There's a unique power in knowing that one day they'll look back and realize what they lost. Not because you waited around for them to wake up, but because you finally stopped waiting altogether. Regret is their burden to carry, but it becomes your revenge when you take the energy you once poured into them and use it to build a life so undeniable they can't help but notice. Their regret begins the moment your absence speaks louder than your presence ever did. When the calls they took for granted stop coming, when the texts they ignored are no longer sent, when the smile they dismissed is no longer offered to them. That silence becomes deafening because it forces them to feel the gap they never thought you'd have the strength to create. Revenge, in this sense, isn't about payback. It's about transformation. It's choosing to rise so high that their opinion no longer defines you. It's walking into rooms with a confidence you never had when you were clinging to their approval. It's living so fully, so unapologetically, that they become a footnote in a story they once thought they were the author of. And the irony is, the moment you stop needing them, that's when they usually come back around. Because nothing is more magnetic than someone who has reclaimed their power. The very detachment they once assumed meant you'd always be available suddenly flips, and they find themselves chasing what they once ignored. Their regret grows as your standards rise, because now they realize they can't reach you at the level they left you. Every success you create, every boundary you enforce, every ounce of happiness you cultivate without them becomes a reminder that they didn't just lose you. They lost the future they could have had with you. And that realization stings in a way no argument ever could, because it's no longer about what you said. It's about what they see. The sweetest revenge isn't found in proving them wrong. It's in living a life so right that their regret becomes inevitable. You're no longer the backup. You're no longer the almost. You're the one who walked away, turned the page, and rewrote the story, leaving them stuck in the chapter they thought would never end. There's a gut punch moment when you suddenly see it clearly. You're not the one they rearrange their day for. You're the one they call when the other plans fall through. It doesn't show up in one big dramatic reveal. It creeps in quietly. The late replies, the "let's see how the week goes," instead of making solid plans. The way they're always available when they want something, but never when you do. You don't even need them to say it. You feel it in your stomach. You've been positioned as the backup. And the cruel part. In the beginning, you ignored the signs. You told yourself they were just busy. You convinced yourself you were being too needy. You gave them excuses they never earned because admitting the truth felt too heavy. Admitting that the person you've been investing your time and your heart into doesn't see you as their first choice. The denial kept you comfortable, but it also kept you stuck. The realization hits harder because deep down, you already knew. You knew when you saw how quickly they lit up for other people, but gave you half energy. You knew when your heart leapt at a notification only to find it wasn't them. You knew when you had to fight for their attention while they gave it freely to others. And in that split second of clarity, you finally see the imbalance. You've been all in and they've been 1 foot out. What makes it sting is the self-betrayal. Because the truth isn't just that they put you second. It's that you allowed it. You gave more chances than they deserve. You settled for less than you wanted. You accepted crumbs because you hoped the feast was coming later. And when the curtain drops, when the mask slips, and you see your place in their life for what it really is, it's not just their behavior you're confronting. It's your own willingness to live as a backup. When someone doesn't choose you fully, but you keep sticking around, you send a message louder than any words could. I'll tolerate this. Every unanswered text, every cancelled plan, every half-hearted effort they give you is quietly teaching them that they don't need to give you more. They see you'll still be there, waiting, hoping, available on standby. And the moment they know that, your value in their eyes drops. Not because you aren't valuable, but because you've shown them you don't value yourself. The more you stick around, the more they start to believe they can get away with it. You're not raising the standard, you're lowering the bar. Instead of them stepping up, you end up stepping down. And here's the dangerous part: the longer you stay, the harder it becomes to walk away. Because now you've invested, you've given time, you've built the story in your head of what this could be. You start holding on to potential instead of reality, and in doing so, you shrink your own worth in their eyes. There's a simple truth people rarely admit: respect doesn't grow when you keep showing up for someone who doesn't show up for you. It fades. Every time you say yes to crumbs, you're saying no to being valued. Every time you choose to stay, they choose not to change. You think your loyalty will eventually win them over, but all it actually does is prove they can keep taking without ever giving more.